Hey everybody, it's Greg Rice. We're here at HomeSmart Professionals, real estate headquarters for Rhode Island, with the president, Dean deTonnancourt. Dean, how you doing?
Good, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for chatting with me today.
Yep.
And what we usually do, and what you at home have probably seen, is we let the guest take it where they want to go. But today, Dean, I have an agenda. I'm agenda driven.
Just my luck.
Just your luck.
Good.
And we're going to talk about the power of the franchise.
Right.
Because you opened the HomeSmart.
Yes.
Taking that franchise model, the plug and play that we were talking about.
Yep.
Instead of opening Dean's brokerage.
Right.
Or starting from scratch.
Right.
So before we get into that,
Yeah.
though, let's back up. Are you originally from Rhode Island, or are you
I
a
am.
transplant?
No, I'm born and raised. Born and raised here. Yep.
From?
Live in West Warwick. Grew up in Coventry.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And what was your first dive into real estate? What was the first thing?
So I was 21 years old, and I was managing a video store at the time when there was such a thing. And one of my customers at the store was actually a real estate broker.
Okay.
And he sponsored me for my license, and it just started from there. Within a short period of time, I was also in banking, and within a short period of time, I left those jobs. I kept a part-time job at the bank as I got started, and then jumped in with both feet.
So where was your first start in real estate?
So I started at Century 21 in Coventry, Century 21 Town Crier Agency, and it was just a great experience, great opportunity to learn. Incredible brokers, Bill and Elaine Eccleston, and the family is just sensational. So they were really good to me.
And they are a franchise as well?
Yes. I've always been associated with a franchise.
So Century 21.
Century 21. I grew and became part of the RE/MAX system.
Okay.
And after some time with RE/MAX, about 20 years ago, I left RE/MAX to open Keller Williams Realty, to bring Keller Williams Realty to Rhode Island. So, and then 6 years ago, brought HomeSmart to Rhode Island. So I've always been part of a brand. I believe in a brand.
So why do you believe in that brand?
Well, and I think there's power behind something larger than yourself, especially when I started HomeSmart. I had to look at the options, and I said, well, do I do something on my own? Do I become an independent broker and do something, come up with a catchy name? And I started looking into that, quite frankly. When I realized I needed to make a change for my business again, I looked at all of the options. And while I was looking into that aspect of starting my own brand, I realized that I was spending more time looking into CRMs,
right,
programs, email servers, website design, all of the things that I don't want to be doing. What I do best is real estate. And I was actively selling at that time in real estate. The year we opened here at HomeSmart, I sold 60 homes myself. So I was very ingrained in real estate sales and knew that I wanted to grow something to ultimately be where I am now, and that is with more focus on helping others sell real estate.
Right.
My focus as a broker is to help others sell real estate, to treat our associates, our realtors, HomeSmart family, as business people. Ultimately, we're a business services company. We're in the brokerage business. They are in the real estate business. They're working with their buyers and sellers in real estate, but they're each running their own individual business. They are handling it like a business, treating it like a business, growing it like a business. I wanted to focus on helping them do exactly that in building those businesses. I can only do that if I have systems in place, because if I want to coach, I want to mentor, I want to assist, I can't spend it dealing with creating things. Real estate tools have already been invented. It's just a matter of which ones you want to use. And when I found HomeSmart, it allowed me to plug into their systems and utilize those systems and focus on what I do best, and that's real estate.
Right.
So that's what's been great about a brand. Now, the brand is important. The systems are important. HomeSmart was not even recognized in this area. When we started with Keller Williams was in Massachusetts. It was in Connecticut. It was new to Rhode Island, but it wasn't new. HomeSmart, the closest office to us in HomeSmart, was in Chicago.
Really?
So HomeSmart wasn't even on the East Coast. So I took a big chance on the franchise because ultimately no one knew what HomeSmart was.
Right.
You know, it's like anything else. Like Keller, when Keller started Keller Who, HomeSmart. Who's HomeSmart? What is this all about? What they knew was me as a practitioner in the industry, but they didn't know the name. So we had to quickly build some trust around the name. But at the end of the day, the trust is in the individual. So the individual, like anything else, as a broker, I'm running a business. I'm plugging into the tools. So even if somebody doesn't know the name and they trust the individual,
Right.
they need to trust the individual in what they're plugging into.
Yes.
Does that make sense? The
100%.
reputation of the franchisee is important. The aspect of trusting the person at the helm is very important for the consumer, but they need to trust that person to know the system that they plugged into.
Exactly.
And why they did. And that's the same thing on an agent level for our licensees. Ultimately, the consumer is hiring them. They're hiring us. So it's up to us to make sure we have the systems in place for them to plug into as well.
And do you think that if you started your own brokerage and then had all of your agents as you do now, it would be harder for you to grow because the systems that you're providing your agents were a little more maybe clunky or didn't fit 100%?
Well,
do you think it would be different?
It would be very different. I don't know if it would be clunky because ultimately you choose the right systems.
Yep.
Of course, you don't choose clunky systems. But I understand your point in that. The key is finding the right systems and the right tools and the right procedures. It's again, you're plugging into it. It needs to work. But plugging into systems that already exist is far more affordable than outsourcing multiple systems and pulling them together and tailoring them and customizing them to yourself.
Yep.
So I would have spent more time designing systems, customizing systems, and I'd still be working to continue to shop for systems because everything changes over time. So if I'm spending all of that time, I'm not doing what I do best, but on top of that, it's more expensive. So your fee structure to your consumers, in our case, our consumers are our agents. The fee structure would change because it would cost me more to implement systems that didn't already exist or needed customization. So we can keep our expenses down for our agents.
True.
Our agents are keeping more of their hard-earned money, and that's because we have a system in place that makes sense and is affordable.
It's efficient.
Yes. The efficiencies are key in all of it.
That's a good point. I never thought of that. So your growth potential is exponential with the franchise model.
Yes, absolutely, because it's all a system, right? You enhance your system, you scale your support team as you need to, but the support team is relying on a system that doesn't need to be scaled.
Right.
It needs to always be enhanced, needs to always be improved, but that's on the franchisor. So a franchisee does have to hold a franchisor accountable to that. And the power of HomeSmart for us is, while the company's been around for 20 years, it's only been franchised for the past 10. They are open to learning more. They're a growing company too. So having started now 6 years now already for us, I was at the beginning phase of that growth.
Yeah.
So I can literally pick up the phone and call the president of HomeSmart and say, we've got something we need to enhance. Can we talk about it? And she will listen to what I have to say. So having a franchise that grows with you and wants you to grow with them is powerful.
Invaluable.
It's really worked well for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how about the folks at home? What is the worst thing about owning a franchise? And not necessarily, here at HomeSmart, but just the general concept. What's one of the downsides that you found over the years working at 4 different franchises?
The one downside that comes to mind is, and it was important to me when I started HomeSmart, our territory for HomeSmart in Rhode Island is the whole state of Rhode Island. It was important to me that I didn't compete for my own reputation in my own marketplace. So any HomeSmart offices here in Rhode Island are wholly owned and part of our servicing in our territory. Whereas there are franchise models, and throughout the country there are several HomeSmart brokers. And there are several franchises that have multiple locations, and those locations sometimes cross borders.
Right.
So you find that, at least in the real estate realm, we're talking franchises in general, but in the real estate realm, we find that there's crossover between agents who are looking to partner with the right broker, but that they want to be with a broker that isn't necessarily in that area or what have you, and the brokers, while supportive of each other, also need to protect their businesses.
Right.
And I respect that. That's not an issue when it comes to territories and growth. But it also becomes an issue when someone in a franchise doesn't have the same reputation that you want to be associated with.
Got it.
Now, I'm not even giving examples or examples even coming to mind.
Right.
I'm giving you the thought process I had when I started. And that is, if someone else does something that has a negative impact on the brand, it affects me because I'm part of that brand.
100%.
So no matter what happens within the brand is affected. Now we can say, well, wait a minute, we're all independent contractors and that's just one agent and they're not even part of my brokerage and what have you. But the consumer looks at it and says, well, that person's with HomeSmart.
Yep.
So I can control the messaging.
True.
Because we at HomeSmart communicate how we want to treat our clients and how we want to be perceived in the industry. So it allows us to control the messaging. Now that doesn't mean people aren't going to slip up here and there.
Oh, yeah.
But we're not affected by somebody else's reputation.
But like you look at, there might be a franchise here in Warwick and then another one up in North Smithfield, but they're separate. And the guy in North Smithfield does something under the same name as the Warwick office,
Right.
and the consumer doesn't know any better to think, oh, they're separate.
Right.
So
they don't look at it that way.
You're spot on.
Because when somebody does something great, people tell a couple of people, right?
Yep.
When they do something not so great, they tell Facebook.
Yep.
So, that negative impact is, sometimes can't be controlled.
That's a really good point. And you're controlling the message, as you say, in Rhode Island.
Right.
So if a HomeSmart in Massachusetts does something, it could potentially tweak the consumer's mind, but it's disconnected.
Right, and at the end of the day, ultimately you're going to find that throughout. There are other HomeSmart franchises in Massachusetts now because it's starting to grow in New England. While we were the first one here, it's starting to grow. And that's going to happen. And it's just an example of what could happen. And that's why I didn't want to be part of a franchise that had another franchisee next door. I wanted to be able to control my messaging.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, thanks. It's as honest as I can be.
It's true.
Yeah.
So how about this? When you were opening HomeSmart, what was the toughest part? The onboarding procedure. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's within the franchise itself?
Yeah, like coming from,
Yes, absolutely. No, I can give the perfect example, and if HomeSmart is watching this interview, they'll continue to learn from it. Ashley, don't beat me up. Ashley's the CEO of HomeSmart International. So ultimately what it is getting their system to work locally.
Yep.
So in our example, that's the only thing I can speak in is examples. All of the HomeSmart companies throughout the country, at least at that time, as the best example, never held escrow. The title attorneys held escrow. So the real estate companies did not. So it was always at the title company. So we are an escrow state here in Rhode Island. So we hold the escrow deposit when we go into deposit on a home. Well, their system didn't provide for escrows. There was no place to enter that into the system in order to accommodate that in the the bookkeeping. So we had to work with them to say, okay, here's how it works. I mean, they had no idea. So they had to actually take their technology and redesign it. And fortunately, they have a technology department right in-house. It's not outsourced. So we could speak with them and say, here's what it needs to do, here's how it works. They were willing to listen, they were willing to adapt, and they conformed, because now there are other states that have escrows, but we help them understand how to implement it into their technology. So that was the biggest thing, but we got through it. The key is being able to work with the franchise and say, okay, does that work in my market? If not, it's not well, let's stop here. It's, can it work? So, any franchisor needs to be open to adapting to nuances that are specific to the territory that they're talking to.
Yeah. And if you chose a bigger brand, maybe they say, oh, no, this is how we do it. We got 2,000 offices, we're not reinventing the wheel.
And that's a great point, because they have no reason to change what they do.
Right.
Yeah. So having them be willing to morph with us in their growth trajectory really helped quite a bit.
So where do you see yourself in the business in 5 years and then in 10 years?
Okay. Well, I still see myself in the business within both of those timetables, because fortunately, I've been 31 years in the business now, but I'm still young enough to know that I'm still going to be in it for a while.
Yep.
I happen to be fortunate that I got into it at the age of 21. So I have the history behind me, but still the youth and the passion to continue with all of it. So that's what's really what's driving me is, learning, okay, where is it shifting? How is it changing? And how do we adapt to it? Because that's the key. There are folks who have been in the business longer than I have, or even the same amount of time that I have, but they started at a later age.
Right.
So, there are folks that are, just comfortable with the success they have achieved. It takes a lot for me to become comfortable with the success level, because I'm always wanting more.
Yeah, which is a great thing.
Yeah. So, I see myself still very active in the industry in that time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you were the president of the Rhode Island Realtors.
Yes. Yep.
Last year.
Yep.
And do you think that this franchise was instrumental in gaining that plateau of success?
Well, I think it allowed the visibility within the marketplace. There are ways to make yourself more recognized in the industry, and one of those is to have a company that's supporting you, and a company that has that recognition. So while in the presidency, for the example, is more about personal involvement than professional success, so it may not be the ideal example for what your point is, and because I see your point in that, but the franchise definitely grounds me. I know that I may have had a harder time growing. Here we are 6 years later with 270 agents here in Rhode Island alone. So I know that our growth would not have happened as quickly. Now we've grown with that, we've adapted to that, and we've streamlined everything as we go. Everything's a state of adaptation, right? You scale it to the growth of the business. So that instant growth is something that's easy to manage if you have systems in place. Right. That's the power of the franchise, is having systems in place. Yes, we need local systems as well for our local market, but the franchise has to have systems in place to allow us to just plug into it.
Love it. And my final question, I know you're a busy man.
No worries.
The folks at home that are thinking, should I open a franchise? Tell us about maybe what you would have done differently 6 years ago, if anything, that maybe they can take with them if they open their own franchise they can consider.
So if someone's buying a franchise, what would I have done differently?
Yeah.
I think if I had to say what I would do differently, it would be to truly understand what the differences are in each market so that I can predict it. Because, and I don't know that that's possible, quite frankly, because there are so many different ways that the technologies interface. But an example would be, it took us months to connect with our MLS system because their technology and the IDX feed didn't connect as seamlessly. I wouldn't have thought to think that would be an issue. Now, they fixed it, they were working on it daily, and it just was a matter of time, but we were working without our website for a short period of time because it didn't interface easily. Again, kudos to MLS, they were on it, but you have two systems that never spoke before. So you have to find a way to get them to learn how to speak. So maybe asking certain questions of what is the technology, how does it tie in, what does that look like? Now, in our case, we rely on outside technologies like MLS searches and IDX feeds and things like that. That may not be the case in every franchise.
Right.
But to understand what questions to ask and say, okay, what do I need it to do for my business, and how does this connect, and is there a connectivity issue? Because you don't want to start out the gate and realize you don't have what you need, and primary thing you need is the ability for buyers to do searches, right? So we didn't have the ability to do searches on our own website. It was a short period of time, but it still would have been nice to have been able to forecast that.
But the thing I just got out of that message was leave yourself time.
Yes.
Give yourself a nice gap of 6 months maybe to get your stuff and affairs in order. Don't be like, all right, next month I better be making money, because you could hit a snafu like that throws you off kilter.
Yes. Well, and that's a true point as it's stated, but there's no excuse to not be earning a living for a short period of time. And the only reason I say that is because I know that's not how you meant it. It's sometimes the change has to happen quickly because business can't stop.
Right.
Not that it's not about their income earnings, it's about the business. So in the real estate business, you can't be starting a business while you're at another firm.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were an independent brokerage that was buying into a franchise, then you can strategize that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're part of a different franchise, there's a definite cutoff. You can't be doing both.
Right.
So it's all about what are the nuances with the person's situation and what do they need to structure in order to get to that point.
Right on.
Yeah.
And if the folks at home have any questions for you, how can they get in touch with you?
I can be reached here at HomeSmart. We are in Warwick. Our headquarters location is 100 Quaker Lane here in Warwick, and our website is theroadhome.com.
And road spelled?
Road is spelled like Rhode Island, RHODE home.com.
Awesome, Dean. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great time.
Appreciate it.
Great content. And if you have any questions for me or about opening your own Nexus Property Management franchise, contact us below today. And you can also reach us on the website nexuspropertymanagement.com.
Awesome.
Once again,
Thanks
Greg,
again.
Here at HomeSmart with Dean deTonnancourt.
Thank you, sir.
President.
Appreciate it.
Your property managed.